When voices rise, clarity disappears. A shouting match is not a conversation. It's two nervous systems colliding. In that moment, logic doesn't lead, emotion does. And if you try to win with volume, facts, or force, you don't calm the fire. You feed it. The first rule of de-escalation is understanding this. Escalation is contagious, but so is calm. The person who controls their tone controls the direction of the moment. Shouting feels powerful, but it actually signals loss of control. Calmness, on the other hand, signals authority. When you lower your voice instead of raising it, you introduce contrast. That contrast forces the other person to adjust. People unconsciously mirror energy. If you meet shouting with shouting, the situation explodes. If you meet shouting with steadiness, the situation slows. In heated moments, timing matters more than wording. Trying to explain yourself while emotions are high rarely works. The brain under stress is not listening for understanding. It's listening for threat. This is why arguing facts in a shouting match feels pointless. Instead of defending, pause. Silence, when used intentionally, interrupts escalation. It gives the nervous system a chance to reset. Silence is not weakness, it's restraint. Your body speaks before your words do. Relax your shoulders. Unclench your jaw. Breathe slowly. These signals communicate safety even before you say anything. When you appear composed, you send a message without speaking, "I'm not a threat." This reduces the other person's need to fight. De-escalation starts internally before it ever shows externally. When you do speak, choose fewer words. Short, grounded sentences land better than explanations. Saying something like, "I want to understand, but not like this," draws a clear line without attacking. It redirects the moment. It doesn't shame. It doesn't challenge. It stabilizes. De-escalation is not about proving a point. It's about creating conditions where a real conversation can happen later. Never chase volume. If someone shouts and you respond louder to be heard, you've already lost leverage. Instead, slow down. Speak softer. This forces attention. People have to quiet themselves to hear you. Calm speech pulls others down to your level. This is not manipulation. It's regulation. It's also important to recognize when to step away. De-escalation does not mean staying in chaos. Sometimes the most powerful move is disengagement. Saying, "I'm going to step away until we can talk calmly," protects both people. It prevents damage. Walking away is not surrender. It's boundary setting in real time. Shouting often hides fear, frustration, or feeling unheard. You don't have to agree with the emotion to acknowledge it. Validation is not approval. Saying, "I can see this matters to you," lowers defensiveness. It tells the other person they don't need to shout to be noticed. Once someone feels seen, their volume often drops on its own. Control your reactions, not the other person. You cannot force someone to calm down, but you can refuse to escalate. This refusal is strength. It takes discipline to remain steady when provoked, but that steadiness becomes the anchor in the room. And anchors don't move. They stabilize everything around them. De-escalation is not about winning arguments. It's about protecting relationships, safety, and self-respect. The loudest voice rarely leads. The calmest one does. When you master your tone, your timing, and your presence, you change the outcome of conflict without raising your voice. And in moments of chaos, that calm becomes power. Calm is control. The quieter voice leads the room. In moments of tension, most people believe power comes from volume, speed, or force. They raise their voice to be heard, interrupt to dominate, and push harder to win the moment. But true control works in the opposite direction. When emotions run high, calm becomes the strongest signal of authority. The quieter voice does not compete for attention, it commands it through contrast. Shouting triggers a biological response. When voices rise, the nervous system interprets danger. The body shifts into defense, narrowing focus and reducing the brain's ability to process logic. In this state, no one is truly listening. They are reacting. The quieter voice interrupts this pattern. It introduces safety into chaos. It slows the pace and creates space for regulation. Calm is not passive. it is strategic. A quiet voice forces others to adjust. People must pause to hear it. This pause alone can reduce intensity. When you speak calmly while others are loud, you change the dynamic. You refuse to match their escalation. This refusal is not weakness, it is leadership. Leaders don't mirror chaos, they stabilize it. The person who stays calm becomes the emotional reference point in the room. Calm also communicates confidence. When someone believes in their position, they don't need to shout. Volume often compensates for insecurity. A steady tone suggests self-control and certainty. It signals that you are grounded enough to hold your position without force. Others instinctively recognize this. They may not agree with you, but they feel your composure. That composure carries weight. The quieter voice also reduces defensiveness. Loudness feels like an attack, even when the words are neutral. Calmness lowers perceived threat. It allows the other person's nervous system to settle. Once threat decreases, understanding becomes possible. You cannot reason with someone who feels unsafe. Calm creates the conditions where reasoning can begin. Control is often misunderstood as dominance. Real control is self-regulation. It's the ability to manage your reactions rather than trying to control someone else's. When you remain calm, you choose response over reaction. This choice gives you leverage. You decide when to speak, what to say, and how to say it. The moment you raise your voice, you surrender that control to emotion. The quieter voice also sets boundaries without confrontation. It communicates firmness without aggression. Saying something calmly and clearly draws a line that does not invite escalation. It tells the other person that shouting will not change your stance. Over time, people learn that emotional intensity does not move you. This consistency reinforces respect. Remaining calm in heated moments takes practice. It requires awareness of your body. Tension in your jaw, shoulders, or breath can signal rising emotion. Slowing your breath, relaxing your posture, and grounding yourself physically helps maintain composure. Calm is not something you wait to feel. It is something you choose to practice. There is also power in silence. A pause after shouting can be more effective than immediate response. Silence creates reflection. It removes fuel from the fire. When you combine silence with a calm presence, you regain control of the moment without speaking at all. Silence, like calm, is not absence. It is intention. The quieter voice does not mean suppressing emotion. It means expressing emotion without letting it take over. You can be firm, serious, or even disappointed without being loud. Calm does not dilute the message, it sharpens it. It ensures your words are heard rather than drowned in noise. In the end, control is not about overpowering others. It's about mastering yourself. The quieter voice leads because it stabilizes, clarifies, and commands respect without force. When you choose calm in moments of tension, you don't just change the conversation. You change the outcome. Lowering intensity changes the direction of the conversation. Most conflicts don't continue because the issue is unsolvable. They continue because the emotional temperature keeps rising. When intensity increases, clarity disappears. People stop listening to understand and start listening to defend. In that state, conversations don't move forward, they spin in circles. Lowering intensity breaks that cycle and redirects the exchange toward something more productive. Intensity is not just about volume. It shows up in speed, tone, body language, and facial expression. Fast speech, sharp gestures, and tense posture all signal threat. Even accurate points lose impact when delivered with high intensity. The nervous system reacts first, long before the mind can process meaning. Lowering intensity sends a different signal: safety. And when safety enters the room, defensiveness begins to fade. The person who lowers intensity first often regains influence. This doesn't mean giving in or backing down. It means choosing regulation over reaction. When you slow your voice, soften your tone, or pause before responding, you create contrast. That contrast forces the conversation to shift. Others may continue at high intensity for a moment, but eventually, the imbalance becomes uncomfortable. People naturally adjust to match the calmer energy. Lowering intensity also prevents escalation traps. When someone raises their voice or sharpens their words, There's an unspoken invitation to respond in kind. Accepting that invitation feels automatic, but it leads nowhere. Declining it changes everything. By not matching intensity, you interrupt the pattern. The conversation can no longer follow its original aggressive path. Timing plays a critical role. Trying to resolve everything in the peak of emotion rarely works. Lowering intensity buys time. It allows both people to move out of reaction mode. This pause creates space for thought, reflection, and choice. It shifts the conversation from emotional discharge to intentional communication. Another powerful effect of lowering intensity is that it protects dignity. High-intensity conversations often include words spoken out of frustration rather than truth. These words can't be taken back and often cause lasting damage. Lowering intensity preserves the relationship, even when disagreement remains. It allows both parties to walk away with less regret and more self-respect. Lower intensity also changes how messages are received. Calm statements land more clearly. They are easier to process and less likely to be misinterpreted as attacks. A calm, "I'm not comfortable with this," carries more authority than a shouted defense. Authority doesn't come from force, it comes from steadiness. Lowering intensity requires awareness of your internal state. When you feel your heart rate increase or your thoughts speed up, that's the moment to slow down. Taking a breath, pausing, or even suggesting a break can redirect the conversation. These actions communicate control, not avoidance. It's important to understand that lowering intensity is not about suppressing emotion. It's about expressing emotion in a way that doesn't overwhelm the moment. You can be firm without being forceful. You can be honest without being heated. This balance keeps conversations moving forward rather than breaking down. When intensity drops, solutions become visible. People regain the ability to listen, empathize, and compromise. The conversation shifts from who is right to what can be done. This shift is where progress happens. Without lowering intensity, progress is impossible. Ultimately, conversations follow the emotional lead set within them. If intensity stays high, the conversation stays stuck. If intensity lowers, direction changes. By choosing calm and measured responses, you don't just protect yourself. You steer the interaction toward clarity, respect, and resolution. Words matter less than tone and timing. Most people believe that if they find the right words, the conversation will go their way. They focus on phrasing, arguments, and explanations, convinced that logic alone will carry the message. But in moments of tension, words are only a small part of what is being received. Tone and timing shape how those words land. The same sentence can calm a situation or ignite it, depending on how and when it is delivered. Tone communicates intention before words are processed. A calm tone signals safety, while a sharp or rushed tone signals threat. Even neutral language can feel aggressive if delivered with tension. The nervous system reacts to tone instantly, often before the meaning of the words is understood. This is why people sometimes say, "It's not what you said, it's how you said it." Tone frames the message. Without the right tone, the right words fail. Timing is equally powerful. Speaking at the wrong moment can turn a reasonable point into fuel for conflict. When emotions are high, people are not ready to receive information. They are still reacting. Trying to explain yourself in that moment often makes things worse. Good timing respects emotional readiness. It waits for intensity to lower before introducing clarity. Many arguments escalate because people rush to be heard. They interrupt, correct, and defend too quickly. This urgency increases tension. Slowing down changes the pace of the interaction. A pause can be more effective than a paragraph. It allows emotions to settle and shows restraint. Restraint communicates confidence. It says you don't need to force your message to be valid. Tone also reflects self-control. When you keep your voice steady, you demonstrate regulation. This regulation often invites the other person to mirror you. People subconsciously adjust to the emotional cues around them. A calm tone lowers the temperature of the conversation, making it easier for others to respond calmly as well. Timing helps preserve relationships. Addressing sensitive topics at the wrong time can cause unnecessary harm. Even truthful words can feel like attacks when delivered in moments of stress or vulnerability. Waiting for the right moment shows respect. It signals that the relationship matters more than immediate expression. This patience often leads to better outcomes. Another reason tone and timing matter is that they influence credibility. When someone speaks calmly and at the right moment, they appear thoughtful and grounded. When someone speaks impulsively or aggressively, their message is often dismissed, regardless of its accuracy. People trust composure. They listen to those who appear in control of themselves. Tone also protects dignity. Raised voices and harsh delivery can humiliate or provoke defensiveness. A respectful tone allows disagreement without disrespect. It keeps the conversation human rather than adversarial. This dignity is essential for resolution because people are more willing to engage when they feel respected. Timing is also about knowing when not to speak. Silence can prevent escalation. Choosing not to respond immediately gives you control over the situation. It allows you to respond rather than react. This choice often shifts the power dynamic, because it shows that you are not driven by emotion. Words still matter, but they matter most when supported by the right tone and timing. Without these, even the best phrasing fails. With them, even simple words carry weight. A calm "let's pause at the right moment" can do more than a long explanation delivered too soon. In the end, communication is not just about what you say, but how and when you say it. Tone sets the emotional frame. Timing determines readiness. When both are aligned, words become effective. When they aren't, words become noise. Mastering tone and timing transforms conversations, turning conflict into clarity and chaos into control. You don't win arguments by winning. You win by stabilizing. Most people enter arguments with a hidden goal: to prove they are right. They gather facts, sharpen their points, and push harder as resistance grows. But in heated moments, being right rarely leads to resolution. Arguments don't collapse because someone lacked logic. They collapse because emotions spiraled out of control. Stabilization, not domination, is what ends conflict and restores clarity. Winning an argument often means overpowering the other person. It means out-talking them, cornering them, or forcing a concession. Even if you succeed, the cost is high. The other person feels unheard, embarrassed, or defeated. This emotional residue lingers long after the argument ends. Relationships weaken, trust erodes, and future conversations become more defensive. Stabilizing avoids this damage by prioritizing regulation over victory. Stabilization begins with self-control. When emotions rise, your first responsibility is not to respond, but to regulate. Slowing your breathing, lowering your voice, and grounding your body signals safety. These signals reduce emotional intensity. Once intensity drops, the conversation can move forward. Without stabilization, logic has no place to land. Arguments escalate because people react to energy, not content. Raised voices, sharp tones, and defensive posture communicate threat. Stabilization counters this by changing the emotional environment. Calm presence interrupts escalation. It tells the nervous system that there is no immediate danger. When the body feels safe, the mind becomes available again. Trying to win keeps the argument alive. Each point invites a counterpoint. Each defense invites another attack. The exchange becomes endless. Stabilization breaks this loop. It shifts the goal from proving a point to restoring balance. This shift often disarms the other person. When they realize you are not trying to overpower them, their need to defend softens. Stabilization also preserves dignity. Winning often requires exposing flaws or mistakes. Stabilizing avoids humiliation. It allows both parties to maintain self-respect. This dignity makes resolution possible. People are more willing to reflect when they don't feel attacked. Another benefit of stabilizing is long-term influence. People remember how you made them feel more than what you said. If you remain calm under pressure, you become someone others trust in difficult moments. This trust carries more weight than any single argument. It builds credibility that extends beyond the immediate conflict. Stabilizing does not mean avoiding the issue. It means choosing the right moment and tone to address it. Once emotions settle, real conversation can happen. At that point, solutions become visible. Compromise, understanding, and clarity emerge naturally. None of this is possible when the focus is on winning. There is also strength in letting go of the need to be right in the moment. Some battles are better postponed. Some points land better later. Stabilization allows you to protect the relationship while preserving your position. You can revisit the issue when both parties are ready. Winning feels temporary. Stabilizing creates lasting impact. It transforms arguments into opportunities for understanding rather than damage. It shifts the dynamic from opposition to regulation. When you stabilize, you control the environment, not the outcome. And that control is far more powerful than any argument you could win. In the end, arguments are not tests of intelligence or strength. They are tests of emotional regulation. Those who master stabilization lead the conversation, protect relationships, and create resolution. Winning the moment may feel satisfying, but stabilizing the situation is what truly ends the conflict. Safety comes before being right. In moments of conflict, the instinct to prove a point can feel urgent and justified. When emotions rise, the desire to correct, defend, or assert truth often takes over. But no matter how accurate your words are, they lose their value in an unsafe environment. When people don't feel safe emotionally or physically, understanding shuts down. Safety is the foundation of any meaningful exchange, and without it, being right becomes irrelevant. Safety is not only about physical harm. Emotional safety matters just as much. Raised voices, aggressive posture, and sharp language trigger defensive responses. When someone feels threatened, their nervous system shifts into protection mode. In this state, logic, listening, and empathy disappear. The conversation becomes about survival rather than resolution. Prioritizing safety means recognizing when the environment is no longer suitable for productive dialogue. Being right often fuels escalation. Correcting someone in the middle of heightened emotion can feel like an attack, even if it's factual. This perception increases defensiveness and intensity. Safety, on the other hand, lowers the temperature. When safety is present, people are more open, less reactive, and more willing to hear perspectives different from their own. Without safety, truth cannot be received. Choosing safety sometimes means pausing the conversation, stepping back, lowering your voice, or suggesting a break can prevent further harm. These actions are not signs of weakness or avoidance. They are acts of responsibility. They show that you value well-being over ego. Walking away from a heated exchange protects everyone involved, including yourself. Safety also preserves relationships. Words spoken in unsafe moments often leave lasting scars. Even if apologies follow, the memory remains. Prioritizing safety reduces the chance of saying something irreversible. It keeps trust intact and allows space for repair. Being right in the moment may satisfy pride, but it can cost connection. There is also internal safety to consider. Engaging in conflict when emotionally overwhelmed can lead to regret and self-blame. Protecting your own nervous system is just as important as protecting others. Choosing safety means honoring your limits and recognizing when you are no longer in a position to respond thoughtfully. Safety creates the conditions for truth to matter. When people feel safe, they can listen without fear. They can reflect without defensiveness. Only then does being right have a place. Truth delivered in a safe environment becomes constructive rather than destructive. Prioritizing safety requires humility. It means accepting that timing matters more than correctness. It means trusting that the right conversation can happen later, under better conditions. This patience often leads to better outcomes than immediate confrontation. Safety also models emotional intelligence. When you prioritize it, you set a standard for how conflict is handled. You show that respect and care guide your actions. This modeling influences others more effectively than any argument. In the end, safety is the gatekeeper of understanding. Without it, no amount of correctness will lead to resolution. Choosing safety over being right protects people, preserves relationships, and creates space for meaningful conversation. When safety leads, truth can follow.